I absolutely love the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's probably my favorite movie franchise of all time. But just because I love it doesn't mean it doesn't have its bad moments. Some jokes don't land. Some ideas are just bad, and sometimes they headed down some paths and then changed directions, which makes certain scenes really not work on second viewing. So today I'm going to give you my picks for the 10 most cringe-inducing moments of the entire MCU. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comments section. Share your picks for the cringiest moments in the entire MCU. I don't want this video to be mean-spirited. We love the MCU, but that doesn't mean it doesn't have its weak spots. Also, so you know, over on my Patreon page, I have a companion video to this with 10 more bad moments from the MCU. If these are cringe moments, the other list are kind of bad writing, bad decisions they made inside of sometimes otherwise really good movies. Join at any level and you can unlock that video, and let's get started. Kicking things off is the romance between Bruce and Natasha in Avengers Age of Ultron. Now, this always seemed like a really odd romantic pairing that kind of came out of nowhere. Inside the movie itself, I guess it worked well enough just because they're both good actors, but it didn't seem like it was really going anywhere, and then they tried to hint back at it in Thor Ragnarok, but this just seems like a misstep where they tried something, it didn't really work, it always felt really awkward and forced, and by the end of the day, it didn't add up to much of anything inside of the MCU, so rewatching this movie, it's just kind of cringy. Number 9, the final battle between T'Challa and Killmonger in Black Panther. For a film that can have some pretty complex plotting, deep themes, and actually good fight choreography in other scenes, the final battle between the two of them feels like a mediocre cutscene from a PlayStation 3 game. It kicks off with the two characters falling unusually far down a shaft and them fighting in a cave, but it's very awkwardly lit. The rendering isn't very good. And so for what should be kind of the climax of a film, it doesn't feel all that exciting. It's not a very good sequence, and for an otherwise really good film, it's one of the weak points. Number 8, Starlord plays catch with ego in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Now, I get that this movie is trying to establish the father-son relationship between the two of them, and they want to have this moment where Starlord has kind of these normal father-son type moments with his dad that he's finally found after all these years. But the idea of them going outside, creating an energy ball and playing catch with it is like the most aw shucks 1950s, hey pa, let's go out and play catch moment that they could have picked. Like, it's the corniest, goofiest kind of moment that you can pick to symbolize this relationship. And so it rings a lot more hollow than it really should. Instead of like having a meaningful conversation or building to a moment that it's like, yeah, I played baseball. I always wanted to play catch. I go play catch. Like, nothing that makes it feel organic. It just feels like, what's the most cliche imaginable father-son moment you can have? Let's go play catch, pa. That's what James Gunn went with. Number 7, the diner scene from Avengers Endgame. Now, this one kind of has a threefer of cringe moments. For some people, they thought just the introduction of Professor Hulk itself was cringe-inducing. I was fine with Professor Hulk, but the way the scene plays out, some kids walk up wanting a picture with the Hulk. He starts dabbing, which seems like a very dated reference for where this movie takes place in the timeline. And then it goes into this whole bit about whether the kids do or don't want a picture with Ant-Man. And if they'd played the joke kind of once, it probably would have been pretty funny, but the joke kind of keeps on going and you just cringe more and more and more as the sequence goes on. Number 6, Naked Selvig from Thor the Dark World. Like pretty much everything else in this movie, it's a little bit ill-conceived and trying a little bit too hard. I get that it's following up the Avengers and he had his mind controlled, and so you want to do something with that, but going to the extent of having him actually run around naked at Stonehenge just feels like it's playing to the lowest common denominator and doing the cheapest possible type of joke you can make, which is, look, He's naked. Not really clever. It's just an easy way to try and get a laugh, and there's not really a punchline to it. Bringing us into the top 5, Steve and Sharon kiss from Captain America Civil War. Now, when this movie first came out, I thought that this was a fine moment. They didn't overplay the romance and distract from the main plot line, but they did use this little connection with her as a way to show Captain America trying to have more normal relationships in the 21st century, and even one of them being a little bit romantic in nature. So I didn't love the moment, but it worked well enough inside of the film. And then Avengers Endgame happened, and suddenly this kiss does not work at all, and maybe has incestual vibes to it, and one of those ones where they started heading down a path with Civil War, went somewhere very different with Endgame, and really made a certain kiss pretty gross. Number 4, the take off your clothes scene from Spider-Man Far From Home. This seems like one of those sequences where the writers, director, and producers just never stopped to think about the implications of the scene that they were making, and they never went, oh yeah, Peter Parker is a minor and he's in high school, and this grown woman probably shouldn't be telling him to take his clothes off. They didn't stop to think, wait, even if he was an adult, an authority figure telling someone to take their clothes off is never actually appropriate in the way that this scene played out.
I'm Peter Parker.
Take off your clothes.
Just do a little bit of a character swap here, and you have Nick Fury telling MJ to take off her clothes in a closed room. Suddenly it gets super creepy, but for some reason, because it was Peter Parker, they thought they could play it for laughs. Really doesn't work, has all sorts of really bad implications. Real quick before I give you my final 3, share your picks down below in the comment section. And I don't want this to get like mean-spirited or anything like that. Just want to have fun with this franchise that we all love, sharing those moments that are kind of cringy in nature. Also remember, over on my Patreon page, I have a companion video to this with 10 more bad moments from the MCU. Sometimes great movies in the MCU have some scenes that still don't really work, and I talk about those over there in that video. If you've enjoyed this one, you'll definitely like that one too. Join at any level, and you can unlock it. In third place, Tony Stark pees his suit in Iron Man 2. Now, I understand one of the things they were trying to do with Iron Man 2 was show Tony Stark's destructive side and the side effects of being a superhero on him, as well as on his health and his self-destructive side. The way they decided to demonstrate that was to have him in his suit at a party, getting drunk, peeing himself. And it's one of those things that it's kind of played for laughs, it's kind of played for serious, so it falls right into that space where it really just makes you cringe, especially because then it leads into a sequence with a PETA in suit, he fights War Machine, all kinds of stuff I don't want to think about, I don't want to see it, and it certainly makes me cringe. Our runner-up, the Trevor reveal from Iron Man 3. Now, I think there's a worthwhile debate as to whether the twist inside of Iron Man 3 works. For most people, it seems like it doesn't, but for a group of people, it subverted their expectations in a pleasant way. That's not really what I find to be the cringe part here. It's the way they decided to characterize Trevor as not just a total buffoon, but a really gross one too.
I wouldn't go in there for 20 minutes. Now, which one of you is Vanessa?
But I'm also not really a fan of this twist. I find it more clever than it is satisfying, and we went from having what could have been this very dark, grounded version of the Mandarin for a guy making stinky bathroom jokes. But the cringiest moment of the MCU is Nick Fury having his eye scratched out by a cat. Now, Nick Fury is one of the most famous eye patch wearing characters in all of cinematic and comic book movie history. Winter Soldier established this very intense moment about one time he trusted someone and it cost him his eye. And what does Captain Marvel do with this very cool backstory that was alluded to? He was holding a cat and it scratched his eye at the end of the movie. It's just not remotely satisfying. It's not really all that clever. It feels like a really cheap joke. I'm pretty sure we saw some people in the comments section in the trailers for Captain Marvel, as soon as we saw him petting a cat, being like, I bet the cat's gonna scratch his eye. So it just feels like such a cheap joke at the expense of the character, and so it cheapens who he is. So for me, not only is it a bad joke, it's bad for the character, so it's cringe-inducing on every single possible level. So it comes in at number 1. If you enjoyed this video and want more, right over there is a video with my picks for my favorite moments from every MCU film. If you want the companion video to this one, down below in the description is the link to my Patreon page where you can join. Thank you so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.